Today's video is going to be all about the upcoming spring Hermes Special Order season, which I would love to share with you some tips on how to best prepare. Tips I wish someone had told me before I placed my first special order. And I also have the color menu to walk you through, which a friend of mine really kindly shared with me. So if you are planning on putting in a request for the Hermes bag of your dreams in the coming weeks or just at one point down the line and you need some clarity on what to expect, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on watching. Now, if you're an Hermes Pro and this isn't your first rodeo, I will make sure to leave a timestamp in the info box on where my overview of the color chart begins, because I wanted to start out by giving you a few little tips on how you can best prepare for your upcoming appointment, or even if you don't have an appointment yet, but you would like to get a little bit of insight into one of the most exclusive Hermes experiences. I know that I would have found these tips incredibly helpful. The first one, let's quickly discuss what the special order experience is in case it's not something you've ever heard of, although I think if you're here, you are going to be extremely familiar with it. But the special order experience is what some people also refer to as the HSS or horseshoe stamp experience, which the name comes from the fact that special order bags have a tiny little horseshoe stamp emblem next to the Hermes branding on the bag, which is how you can recognize special order bags by looking for that little horseshoe stamp detail. But the official name is the A La Carte experience, which is basically a chance for Hermes's most valued clients to customize their dream bag. I'm not going to use the word design their dream bag because that implies that you can really do whatever you want. And when it comes to the A La Carte experience, that's not actually the case. There are very strict limitations on what you can do, but you can customize your dream bag. And we'll walk through exactly what are the things that you can customize and what are the things that you cannot request. But the a la carte experience happens twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall, and each boutique has very limited spots available that are usually reserved for some of their most valued clients. Now, depending on where you shop, sometimes these spots will be given to a different person each and every single season. Other boutiques will let clients come back year after year to put in a wish for a special order bag. It's something that you have to ask your local boutique about. But I think more often than not these days, they will try to make sure that each season they select different clients. The first thing that I would say that is incredibly important is that you do a ton of research before going into your first a la carte appointment, because you will of course have a little bit of time to decide on the spot what you would like to do, but I would suggest doing a little bit of research in advance. The best way to begin is to look at your own collection and look at your own patterns. Try to identify your most used pieces or any potential gaps in your collection. So let's say you are mainly wearing larger bags, but that's not because you love larger bags, but because you don't really have any smaller bags. Well, this is the perfect chance for you to put in a request for a smaller bag, or you might have a collection that is pretty well rounded, but you're finding that you're not really reaching for your larger bags, or you're reaching for bags that come with a shoulder strap and you're not really using those bags that strictly feature top handles. Well, those are all great things to keep in mind when it comes to putting in a request for your dream bag, because at the end of the day, it is a large investment, not only in terms of how much it's going to cost you, which we'll come back to in a second, but also you are putting in a ton of effort by going to the boutique, by waiting for this bag to come in. So I would love to make sure that you are actually ordering a bag that you are going to be able to use and enjoy, and it's not going to be just a piece that ends up on a shelf collecting dust, unless you're a true collector and you're really wanting something that is incredibly special, so special that it doesn't matter how often you can use it. In that case, it really doesn't matter, but I would suggest making sure that you look at your own collection first to figure out what style, what size, and what color you would really need in your collection. Let's say you have looked at your own collection of bags, whether it's Hermes bags or any other bags out there, and you realize that you're mainly reaching for bags that feature a shoulder strap because you don't find bags that exclusively come with top handles the most user-friendly, which makes perfect sense. In that case, I would of course suggest ordering a Kelly or a Constance, because you cannot only order Birkin and Kellys. You have the option to order pretty much any Hermes bag that is currently in production, but of course most people will go for the holy trinity of Hermes bags. So if you know that you're mainly reaching for bags that come with a shoulder strap, obviously a Kelly would be a better bag for you to go for. But if a shoulder strap is not something that makes a big difference in your life and you have always wanted to add a certain Birkin bag to your collection, well, this is your chance. After which I would suggest going online and doing even more research. Once you know what style you're going to go for, I think it's a good idea for you to start looking at what other people have done in the past, not so that you would necessarily mirror those or copy someone else's special order idea. I mean, if you find something that you love, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But just so you get an idea for what color combinations you like, what color combinations you don't like. And I would also recommend having a couple of pictures in your phone just so you can go back to them time and time again before your appointment and see how you feel about them, because of course you will have plenty of time when it comes to your special order appointment to look at different color swatches. Thankfully these days the special order experience takes place on an iPad, so the experience is a little bit more interactive than it used to be, but still you won't get the perfect idea and the perfect feel for what the bag is going to look like. So by looking at pictures prior to your appointment where you can zoom in, you can look at bags from different angles, I think that will give you a much better idea and a better taste for what the bag that you're ordering is going to end up looking like. And at the end of the day, it is a lot of money to spend on a bag, so you want to make sure that the bag that you get at the end of the day is something that you will be happy with. So I would definitely recommend looking at some pictures online. Go to some of your favorite pre-loved sites, go and look at auction houses, not because you want to get bags there, but so you can get a little bit of inspiration for what you like and also for what you dislike, because a bag can look very different in real life compared to what two color swatches look like side by side, if that makes sense. So definitely doing a little bit of research. You can also do a mood board. It's something that I have also done myself, putting some bags together that you like. And I wouldn't really have your heart set on specific colors unless you know the color chart, which is something that we'll of course walk through in a few minutes. But if you don't know the color chart, I wouldn't necessarily have my heart set on a very specific color combination. But if you have a few different options, that's definitely going to make your life a lot easier. And if you have the chance to actually try on the bag style that you're ordering before placing your request, that I think would also be incredibly helpful. So if you have a friend, let's say you have always wanted to get a mini Kelly, but you haven't had the chance to do so. And it's funny because the most frequently asked question when it comes to the special order experience that I get in DMs, that I get in Q&As, and that I even get emails on is, should I order a mini Kelly? My boutique is telling me that they are some of the hardest bags to get and I feel like I need to order one, but I have never seen a mini Kelly. Do you agree that that's the bag that I should order? Which it is true, mini Kellys are incredibly tough to get. And if you have always wanted one, getting one through the special order experience is definitely a really good way to go about it. But if you have never looked at a mini Kelly, if you have never tried one on, if you have never had a chance to use it, this might be a good time for you to either stop by a local pre-loved place. If there is, let's say, a real or a fashion file near you, this would definitely be a good time for you to stop by and try these bags on, play around with them, see what they would look like. Or if you have a friend who owns that bag, you can definitely ask for their help. You can even swap bags. That's something that I actually did back in the day before I bought my first Birkin 35. I actually asked a friend of mine if I could borrow her Birkin 35, which I don't think I ended up borrowing, but we went out for lunch and I played around with her bag. So that's definitely something you could do just so you become a little bit more familiar with the bag itself, because when it comes to Hermes, one of the toughest things is that you cannot just walk into a store and try on their bags. And of course that goes for all of their bags. The same thing goes for bags that you put in a wish for. But when it comes to the special order experience, because you never know when and if you'll get the chance to put in another request for another special order bag, you might want to put a little bit more research behind your decision. But of course, you can do this when it comes to any other Hermes bag. There are certain limitations I want you to be aware of, because you cannot just order whatever you want. You can, of course, choose the style of the bag, but the style has to be currently in production and it has to be part of the special order experience. So while, let's say, the Kelly Picnic or the Kelly Doe are bags that are currently in production, they are not actually bags that you can order through the special order experience. So exceptional bags are a no-go. Things like the Himalaya colorway, those are not going to be on the color menu. So the color menu you always have to stick to. But when it comes to the style, for example, the mini Birkin in size 20 in cellier structure, that is unlikely to be offered as part of the a la carte experience. So when it comes to the style, there are limitations. When it comes to the color, there are certain limitations. The same thing goes for leather. So let's say if you want to order a bag in exotic skin, you always have to double check with your boutique if that's going to be an option, because most boutiques will have, and I'm just going to put a random number out there, let's say if they have 10 special order bags to go around, only 1 or 2 of those are going to be in exotic leather, because of course there are much fewer craftspeople out there who are allowed to craft bags from exotic skin. So Hermes has to make sure that they limit the number of exotic bags that they produce each year, because they don't have the bandwidth to produce as much as there is demand for. So you always want to double check if you can request a bag in exotic skin, whether it's on the menu or not. Some boutiques are not even allowed to put in a request for croc or alligator bags, depending on the size of the store. So again, that's just something else for you to keep in mind. But when it comes to the stitching, the lining, the hardware, those are all things that can be customized. The last 2 things that I wanted you to be aware of is the timeline. So when it comes to a special order bag, it can take quite a bit of time for these bags to be produced. I think my first special order bag, which I have only ever placed 1 special order, I was invited to place another one last year, which I have an entire video on. If you have not seen it, I will make sure to have it linked up here. Long story short, I did not end up placing a special order because the leathers that I would have loved to request were unfortunately not an option, and I didn't want to order something just for the sake of it, because at the end of the day, these are very expensive bags that I don't want to spend on if I'm not actually going to use them, when that money could go towards something that I would actually love to have in my collection. But these bags can take anywhere between a few months to a couple of years to be delivered. And of course, it also depends on what you're ordering. If you're ordering a bag in exotic skin, that can take even longer than that, just because there are even fewer craftspeople out there who are allowed to craft bags from exotic skin. But that's just something for you to keep in mind, that it can take anywhere between a few months to a couple of years for these bags to be delivered, which is really important to note when it comes to budgeting. So if you order a special order bag, I would love for you to start saving up for it as soon as you can, because you never know when it will come in. And if it comes in and you don't feel comfortable spending, let's be honest, some of these bags will set you back $10, $15, $20,000, again, depending on the size, the leather, and the overall structure of the bag, which is a lot of money to just have to spend on a bag. So if you know that you're ordering a bag, make sure that you start saving up for it, because it can really come in at any time. And of course, they can hold the bag for a couple of weeks for you, and you can always say no. Just because you ordered the bag, that doesn't mean that you will have to take it. In fact, the reason they don't ask for a deposit is because none of these special order bags are guaranteed to be delivered. It's quite rare for Hermes to cancel a request, but it can happen, which you have to keep in mind. But I wanted you to know about the timeline just so you can start saving up for these bags, because if they come in, you want to be pretty ready to actually pull the trigger. Now, I don't want you to I don't want this to become a financial burden on you. And if you cannot take the bag, you can, of course, always say no. But if you know that you're ordering a bag, you can ask about price. They will not be able to give you an exact price. But if you're ordering a pretty standard bag in a standard leather and a standard color, they can give you kind of a ballpark based on the pricing of similar bags at the time, because special order bags don't actually cost any more than regular bags do. It is just basically a gesture from Hermes to allow some of their most loyal clients to create their dream bag. And I have also heard that it also helps with their forecasting in terms of how much leather to buy and how many bags to produce. I don't really understand the system behind it, but I have heard people say, kind of experts say, that it also helps with Hermes is forecasting and their planning. Anyway, long story short, all you have to know is that these bags can take anywhere between a few months to a couple of years to be delivered. So you want to make sure that whenever that bag comes in, you are ready financially to pull the trigger. And if you're not, you can always say, hey, I'm not ready for this bag, or I'm not ready to place a special order right now. Give me a couple more seasons to figure out what I would like to do and come back to me then. That is perfectly fine. But without further ado, let's move on to the color chart, which I got from a friend of mine. And I wanted to walk you through some of the colors really quick. So the color menu changes every single season. That's why I wanted to show you the color chart here so you know what to expect for your upcoming spring summer appointment, which honestly is not much. I don't think I've ever seen a color chart this short and this boring in ages, which, I mean, it's not boring to me, but if you like your seasonal colors, if you like unique shades, this season I don't think you'll be very satisfied with these colors, because we don't even have any seasonal colors. I was hoping to see maybe new blue jean or maybe new white, which is a new white shade from Hermes, and none of them are on this color chart. But anyway, this is what you'll be given at your appointment. These are the colors that you have to reference. So of course, Hermes has a lot more colors than these, but these are the ones that you can choose from, and you always have to cross-reference to make sure that the color that you're choosing is available on the menu and that these colors are also offered in the style of bag that you're ordering, because you cannot order every single bag in every single leather and color. There is an additional list for that, but on top you will always have your exotic skins. So we'll start with matte alligator or matte crocodile. We have vanilla, which is kind of similar to Baton, which is another really popular shade in alligator. Vanilla is just a little bit more warm toned. The same goes for gold. It is a beautiful shade. It's something that you'll be familiar with from, I mean, it's one of the most classic, iconic Hermes colors. In alligator, gold is a little bit more muted and it feels a little bit more rusty and warm toned. Then we have Noir, Blue Sapphire, Vert Russo, which is kind of interesting to see back. That is an older color and it's kind of a forest green. Rouge Cellier is a new color. It's kind of an oxblood color. Vert D'eau is a really classic color in alligator. It is a seafoam green, and then there's another blue which is kind of like blue marine. It's just a little bit more vibrant. My favorite colors in, you know that when it comes to exotic skins, matte alligator is my favorite. I have a dedicated video on the difference between exotic skins, which I can make sure to link up here. I don't want to go into that today, but if I had to choose other than black, of course, because black is my favorite color, I would say that vanilla is quite a special color. So is gold, although it's not my favorite in alligator, but Vert D'eau is another classic color that I know has been really quite popular. And then moving on to Lycée Croc, or Lycée Alligator, which is the other main finish. These are not the only two finishes that exotic skins come in. There is also satin finish, which is a lot more rare, but these are the two main. So you have matte and Lycée, which is polished or shiny alligator. The reason Hermes calls it polished and not shiny is because, unlike other patent leathers, polished or shiny alligator and shiny croc doesn't actually have any sort of coating on it. The shiny finish comes from the leather being polished by hand with a special type of stone. So that's why they don't actually call it shiny, they call it polished, because it is technically polished, but it has this really bright high shine finish to it. So of course you again have noir, graphite. Graphite is, as the name suggests, it's kind of a graphite color. It's kind of like a cool toned gray, but it is a really, really dark gray. In certain lights, it would even pass for black. Then you have Bordeaux, which is an oxblood color. Havana is not a color that I like. It's a chocolate brown. You have Vert Rousseau again, which comes both in lisse and matte. Not all colors will be available in both finishes. As you can see, Vert Jade is an incredibly popular color. It was one of the first gemstone inspired exotic colors. Vert Jade and Vert Emerald are some of the most iconic, classic, and I would say most sought after exotic colors. So that's really special to see back here. And then last but not least, Blue Electric is definitely not for the faint of heart, because Blue Electric is one of the most vibrant, eye-catching shades, especially in polished croc or polished alligator. That is something that's going to enter the room before you do. That is a head-turning, insanely loud piece. But if that's something you enjoy, Blue Electric is currently available, but my favorite shade from the polished range is definitely Vert Jade, which I'm really happy to see back here. The only ones that I personally don't like are Blue Electric, because it is extremely loud, and then Havana is just not my cup of tea. And then the last range of exotic skins is Ostrich. Lizard is not on the menu. It wasn't on the menu last year either. I was kind of hoping that it would make its way to the special order menu, just because Hermes has been pushing Lizard so much, but unfortunately it's not going to be an option for this year either. We have a color that's kind of similar to Baton or Vanilla, which is 3C. I don't know how to pronounce it and I don't want to butcher it. Then we have Cognac, that's kind of similar to Havana. Gris Tourterelle in Ostrich. It's nice, it's not my favorite. Then we have Noir. I do not like Ostrich in black. I think if you're going to go for Ostrich, get it in a color that actually emphasizes the hair follicles, which are those little dots. I would not get it in black because it doesn't look the best. We have Vert Cypress, which is an incredibly popular color. It's a true deep dark green that is so dark that in certain lights it kind of looks black. Then we have Deep Blue, Vert Verone, Blue Glacier. Blue Glacier I think is probably the lightest. No, there's Gris Turtle as well on top. I think it's a decent selection of Ostrich colors, but they're definitely much more on the neutral side, which I think is pretty standard for Ostrich. If you are going to get a bag in Ostrich, I would definitely suggest going for a bag in a smaller size so those little dots don't become overwhelming, and maybe go for one in a lighter color, especially if you like to show off that texture that Ostrich is known for. Overall, Ostrich is a really hard wearing, hardy leather that you really don't have to worry about as much as you would have to about matte or polished alligator, but you want to double check if Ostrich is an option at your local boutique, if your boutique is allowed to place an order for Ostrich bags, and if it's something that they have a limit for on how many Ostrich bags they can actually order. Actually, I stand corrected, because Blue Jean is on the menu in Clemence. So Clemence is most comparable to Togo. The grains are slightly larger. It has a little bit more sheen to it than Togo does, and it's exclusively used for larger bags because the grains are quite large and it is a softer leather that will lose its shape quite fast. So those are all things you have to keep in mind. So I would assume you would use this leather if you're ordering a bag in a larger size. So Blue Jean is an option that makes me really excited. I do love Blue Jean. I think it is the most perfect actual color from Hermes, because it is a blue, it is a pop of color, but it is somehow still neutral. It's just like the perfect pair of jeans. It goes with anything and everything. So that is definitely something that I would suggest looking into. Rouge Ash is a newer color from Hermes, which is an oxblood color. We have Chris Meyer, which is not a brand new color, but I know it has been incredibly popular. We have Vert Cypress, which again is another really popular color. And then of course we have our standard neutrals, Nata, Baton Gold, and Noir. When it comes to heritage leathers, which some season you can order bags in heritage leathers, others you cannot. This season, the heritage leather of choice seems to be Berinia Faubourg in the color Fauve, which I do have a mini Evelyn in. If you would like to see how this leather ages, because it will oxidize, I would suggest checking out my video on my mini Evelyn. Fauve is kind of a color that's comparable to gold. It just feels a little bit richer, deeper, and more saturated, but it definitely ages very differently from gold. It gets a lot darker, especially if you order it in a bag like a Birkin, where there are details that you hold on to constantly. You have to keep in mind that the handles will age a lot quicker than the overall body of the bag. Then we of course have Togo. Let me see if there are any colors to point out. Biscuit is a newer color. I really thought that I would like Biscuit, but to me it just feels a little dull. There is something missing. It just feels a little lackluster to me, so it's not my favorite color. Natural Sable, I'm actually quite surprised to see on here because I haven't seen Natural Sable bags in quite a while. Some bags in Natural Sable look really nice, others lean a little bit too yellow for me, so it's quite an unpredictable color. While I like the idea of it, and I have seen bags in Natural Sable that were really pretty, that just look like a really nice neutral shade, I have seen some that almost look kind of yellowish orange, so I don't think that this color ages particularly well. But we have Cray, which is a beautiful neutral. We have Grease Pearl. I think these are two colors that people will mainly order in smaller bags, so I would assume Birkin 25s and Kelly 25s in return structure. We have Noir, Word Russo, Blue Nuit, which are all classic colors. Rouge Cellier, which I think I made a mistake. I think I told you that Rouge Ache, when we were talking about Clemence, is a newer color. It's not. Rouge Ache is one of the most classic reds from Hermes, and Rouge Cellier is the newer Oxblood red, so I got confused. Rouge Ache is a very, very classic red shade from Hermes, and then Rouge Cellier is a newer color. We have Bleu Sapphire, which is a little bit more vibrant than Bleu Nuit, which I think is the reason it's there. Bleu Nuit is the darkest shade of blue. Blue Sapphire has a little bit more actual color to it. It feels a little bit more saturated. And then Grismeyer is again a newer color. Moving on to Swift, which of course is a smooth leather. I would personally stick to Swift in smaller bags, mainly a Calais pochette. To be honest, it's not quite as delicate as I would have expected because my Calais pochette wore a lot better than I had anticipated. But it's still not a leather that I would opt for in a larger bag. But Word Cricket is definitely a really special shade. It's a green, but it's done in a really nice, it feels a little bit more neutral. It's not quite as strong of a green as, let's say, Word Comic. So I think it is a really special color that you could certainly order in a Calais pochette. We also have Biscuit, which I don't really love. If you want to see an example of Biscuit in Swift and Togo, you can look at the 3-in-1 Birkin, which they offered in Biscuit, where the flap, which is actually a removable pouch, is made of Swift, but the body of the tote is made of Togo. So you can see those two leathers side by side. Grismeyer is a newer color, so there are definitely some interesting options here, but I would really only use Swift for a Calais pochette personally. Then moving on to Epsom, they have Epsom in Biscuit, which I'm kind of surprised by, but again, it's not my favorite shade. We have blue. I think is there a spelling mistake here? I think it should be Blue Celeste. Blue Celeste is a really beautiful kind. It's not kind of a baby blue because I think Bleu Brun is closest to a baby blue, but Blue Celeste is a really nice, just a really nice light blue color. It's kind of comparable to Bleu Jean, except this one is slightly more cool toned. It's not quite as neutral, unless it's a new color that's called Blue Celeste, but I think it is Blue Celeste. And then Blue Sapphire, kind of similar to Blue Nuit, not my favorite shade, so Epsom is really quite underwhelming when it comes to the selection. And then last but not least, we have Goatskin, which Goatskin is, you know, it's not my favorite color. I do not like that shiny, kind of slimy finish it has to it, which is just my personal association. But when it comes to colors, Chev absorbs color beautifully. So if you love your colors and you would like to make sure that the bag that you get has the most color saturation to it, Chèvre is a great leather to go for, especially considering that it's also quite scratch resistant. So we have Nata in Chèvre, Etude, Craft is kind of similar to gold. I don't think I've ever seen Craft in Chèvre. Craft is a color that you'll usually find in matte alligator or matte croc. It is a really beautiful neutral shade. It's slightly warmer than gold, and it's also a little bit more interesting. Then we have Brick, which is a terracotta color. We have Caramel. I would not go for Caramel in goat skin. It looks not the prettiest. It kind of has a baby diaper color to it. Then we have Noir, Rouge Ash, which are two classic colors. Deep Blue, Blue and Navy, not new colors. Bleu France, that is a little bit more interesting. It's somewhere between, honestly, somewhere between Deep Blue and Blue Nuit. It is definitely a lot more vibrant than some of the previous blues that we looked at. And then we have Vert Cricket, which I would say is probably one of my favorite shades of green, and that is pretty much it on this list. I'm thinking that they might not offer Dobli, or also known as Suede, for this season, or it might be on the next page of this list, but these were some of the main groups that I feel like most people would want to know about. So it's definitely not the most interesting. It's good for you to know that this is kind of what you can expect from this current special order experience. So I would definitely suggest doing a little bit of research online on what other people have done with these colors. My favorite color on this chart is definitely Blue Jean, because it is a color that I have always really enjoyed. And my friends, this concludes today's video on everything you need to know for the upcoming spring-summer Hermes Special Order experience. If you're participating in the a la carte experience this time around, please let me know in the comment section what it is that you're planning on ordering, especially now that you know of most colors that are going to be available. But even if you're not, if you are just hoping to customize the Hermes bag of your dreams one day, let me know in the comment section what it is that you would order. I cannot wait to hear from you. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. I really appreciate you being here and watching, and I hope to see you back here with a new video really, really soon.